James Tynion, Matthew Rosenberg, and Otto Schmidt continue the vampire takeover as Batman begins piecing together Andrew Bennett's warning, arming up the Bat family while Green Lantern moves to ensure his vampire overlords and their plans are not exposed to the metahuman community. James Tynion and Matthew Rosenberg continue their wonderfully slow build-up to the vampire apocalypse this issue by putting Batman and his family on the case, leading to an issue that is mostly all detective work and the heroes trying to determine what the modus operandi of the vampires is and who they will be coming for next. I love Tynion and Rosenberg also got pretty much all of the Bat family involved in the detective work this time around. It wasn't all just based on Batman, and they even have Batman admit that he doesn't actually know what is going on for once. The absence of Duke Thomas and Stephanie Brown quite surprised me as well, since surely they should have been part of the Bat family meeting, but maybe it will be revealed Batman has them embedded somewhere, or maybe even they are vampires themselves. I like the book also explores the event from both sides here. We have the Bat family and Green Arrow piecing together the conspiracy, and then on the other side of that we have Hal Jordan actually running interference and making it so that no one finds out about him and the other heroes, and he's probing around to see what the heroes actually know, which is very little, and he's kind of overestimating a lot of these heroes. It's quite the interesting way to build an event, and I'm really enjoying the slow build tension that comes from it. Otto Schmidt continues his wonderful artwork for the book, this time focusing it all on the character and the interactions with the mystery as it begins being pieced together. I also really love the fear and panic he's managing to capture in some of the heroes like the Flash at the end of this issue, since it really helps sell just how sudden all of this is and how it's catching everyone kind of off guard. DC vs. Vampires issue 2 was another fantastic installment in the slow burn, tension-filled series, utilizing the combined force of the Bat family really well as they begin piecing together the mystery that is the looming vampire war. I'm going to give this issue a 9 out of 10. DC vs. Vampires issue 2 finds Anton Arcane demand to know if the vampire trying to sneak up on him really thought it could do that. But the Green Lantern Hal Jordan vampire knows that it didn't think that, it just doesn't care. Hal smashes through the man's magical barriers, saying that magic is strong, but his will is stronger. His constructs enter Anton, exploding out of his mouth as Hal rips the man's spine out. Hal's master soon arrives, wondering if that was a little too much. Hal bows before the master, knowing that whatever problems his master has, he will deal with it. The unseen being knows that these problems arose because Hal failed to deal with them the last time. He reveals that Andrew Bennett was alive for a week before Hal got to him, so they need to know who he spoke to in that week, but Hal doesn't think he spoke to anyone. The voice knows that they need to assume that he told someone about the vampire's plans, and while he was always a lunatic, someone out there would have listened and suspicion will spread, and it's Hal's job to keep these suspicions pointed away from them, since they don't need the wrong person figuring them out. Elsewhere, Nightwing comes to see Batgirl, who is suntanning on a rooftop. Barbara wonders why they are meeting during the day as Dick and Barb catch up, with Barbara knowing that it is good to see Dick. Batman soon arrives, knowing that none of the family know why he asked them there, and this discussion needs to stay between all of them. Inside the sunroom, the entire Bat family meet together as Tim asks why they couldn't just meet in their civilian identities, but Batman knows that this is part of it, offering them all Alfred's tea. Damien wonders why Red Hood is there, since he's quite crazy, as Alfred quietly tells Tim that he maintains that all of them would be helped out by a therapist. Batman tells them of Andrew Bennett's visit and how he came to find Bruce Wayne, knowing that the vampire knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman. Dick is shocked to know that he knew the identity of Bruce, as Bruce reveals that Lex Luthor is the one who told him it. But that's not the part that upsets him, since he didn't get to speak with Andrew. He only left a letter, which is why they are all there. Alfred continues handing out the tea despite Barb wanting something stronger, but he assures Barb that the tea is quite strong and will give her a kick. Batman says that he tried to track down Bennett, but he believes the vampire thought he was being followed and made it very difficult to track him, but he followed him all the way to Washington DC, and after that there was no trace of him. And the same goes for Luthor, who hasn't been seen for 2 weeks. Alfred gives Damien some hot cocoa and marshmallows instead of tea, as Bruce says that Bennett's letter claims that vampires are preparing to wage war on humanity, and there was a coup in the leadership and the new powers in charge don't share Mary, the Queen of the Vampires' beliefs that human and vampires can coexist. Elsewhere, a group of villains meet to discuss the heroes hunting them, but Cheshire wants to know what Brick means when they say that something else is hunting them besides heroes. But every man knows that it's just a joke, telling the others that he couldn't find any of the other villains to join them. Batman meanwhile tells his family that he knows that this is the real deal, since his first act as a new vampire lord would be to remove any metahumans he could, citing villain activity being down across the country. Red Hood knows that they are criminals and they hide, but Batman knows that their secrecy makes them the perfect targets. Suddenly, Green Arrow confronts the villains, telling them that he's not there to fight, since they are all right. Brick tries to make a move, so Oliver pins his hand to the table with an arrow, knowing that he will hurt them if it comes to it, but that's not why he's there. He tells the villains about the vampires infiltrating the metahuman community, converting and killing anyone who could fight back, and he knows one of the villains there is a vampire, and it's Everyman. The villain drops the facade, knowing that Oliver will die for this as he flies at the hero, but Oliver hits him with an arrow, killing him and disintegrating him into dust. He tells the rest of the villains to start protecting themselves as Cheshire wonders if the vampire war really is coming, but Oliver knows it's already there. The Bat family continue to discuss this news, and Batman assures them that he's not joking, remembering years ago when he encountered Nikolai Tepesh, the Mad Monk, and how Dick also encountered his subordinate Darla, who was a vampire who lured innocents to their deaths at the behest of the Mad Monk. Bruce says that this was his first encounter with the supernatural, and ever since, he has approached the supernatural the same way, not expecting them to go well. Bruce knows that the Mad Monk's power was a threat to the entire race if he wanted it to be, and now his suspicions are on the verge of being proven correct. Jason wonders if he thinks the monk is behind this, but Bruce doesn't know, and even after a week of investigating, he has no leads. He knows that the best they can do is to make some educated guesses on who they will be going after, knowing that they will hunt metahumans. Jason knows that it'll be the villains first, since they go into hiding regularly, so it's hard for them to notice if they have disappeared. Barbara knows they will then take out the telepaths and psychics next, and Dick adds magic users will also fall as well, since vampires are weak to magic. Tim thinks that people like the Ray and Dr. Light will also be next as well, thanks to their sunlight based powers. Batman wants to know who they would convert as well, and Damian thinks that it would be the younger heroes, merely on the fact that if he was building an army, he wouldn't want it filled with old people. Bruce knows that Damian is mostly right, and the vampires will need to make inroads into the hero community, and maybe they already have agents in the Titans, the Outsiders, or the Birds of Prey, but getting a member into the Justice League would be too hard, and they would use younger heroes to get the older heroes on their side. At the hall, Jaina comes to see if anyone has seen her brother Zahn, knowing that she can't feel him anymore. Booster thinks that maybe he needed a break, but Jaina knows that she has to find him. Hal says that he can help with that, but the woman knows that Brewster might be right, taking her leave as the other heroes aren't too happy with Michael's comments. The hero knows that they spend way too much time together, and he can't be the only one who thinks it's a little weird. Jason meanwhile wonders why Bruce trusts them, but Barbara knows he doesn't. Damian thinks that he poisoned their tea and cocoa, but Bruce says he didn't, since all their drinks were made with holy water, so if they were a vampire, it would have burned them, and it's also why they are meeting in the sun room during the middle of the day. Since the team is cleared, Bruce knows that he can show them something as Damian asks for more cocoa since his spilled. The team are taken to the cave where Bruce says he's had Cassandra watching the team to make sure their body language was normal, or at least normal for them. On top of that, Bruce requires all of them to hold a holy cross with their bare hands. The entire team passes, and most are surprised that Damian even passed that one. Next, Bruce shows them their new weapons, knowing that they won't be using them to capture the vampires. Nightwing hopes he doesn't expect them to kill, but Bruce says that these vampires are dead already. Later on, Alfred brings Bruce some dinner, but is told to leave it by the counter. Alfred, however, lingers, saying that he wants Bruce to know that he's having the tea as well, knowing Bruce not asking him was a mere oversight. Bruce, however, says that he had the boiler blessed, so if he was a vampire, Alfred would have burned to death when he had his evening bath. Alfred wonders why the team weren't told of the vial of Lex Luthor's blood that he also got with Bennett's letter, but Bruce says that putting one's trust in someone is always a gamble, but today he knows he can absolutely trust his family. But fate of humanity is at stake, and it's not one he or anyone else can gamble with. Elsewhere, Green Lantern meets with the Flash on a beach as Hal makes a chair for Barry and the speedster makes one for his friend, sitting as Hal tells him something bad is coming and it's a real fate of the world situation, and lots of people they care for will die. Flash knows that's not a guarantee, but Hal knows that this time it is. Hal asks if Bruce or Clark or anyone else has mentioned anything like this to Barry, but the man doesn't know what he's talking about. Hal hopes that Barry trusts him, since if he knew something bad happened to him, Barry would be the first on his side, and Barry agrees. And Hal says that when something good happens, he wants Barry there as well. Hal reveals himself to be a vampire, knowing something good did happen to him and he wants it to happen to Barry as well. Barry's chair grabs him and holds him in place, as Hal says the problem is though that his master doesn't want Barry to become a vampire, since thanks to his powers and metabolism, it would be genocide and ruin their plans. Hal says he argued for his friend, but he knew in the end that his master was right, and he wouldn't let him turn Flash. Flash tries to vibrate out of the construct but can't, told to be still as he tries to convince Hal that this isn't him. Hal knows that this is indeed him as the construct snaps Flash's neck, eating him up as Hal apologizes to his friend, knowing together they could have conquered the world.